commemorated the International Women's Day, a global holiday celebrated annually on March 8th to reflect on and honor women's achievements. Now, it is an opportunity to amplify voices of women in fighting inequalities, but it's also a time to reflect on the challenges those behind the women movement face in fighting injustices in societies across the world. Now, here at Limelight, we query the progress and again query the impact of this fight, especially to the common person. And to understand this concept very well, we have Sylvia Namubiru, and Sylvia is the Executive Director for Legal Aid Service Providers Network, and he has more than 15 years experience in legal practice. He has been a manager, a trainer with human rights groups and those inclined towards enhancing access to justice. Sylvia, you are is the Limelight, and we straight away want to hear from you. Talk about the progress of the fight against gender inequalities. At what level do you think this fight has reached?
Thank you so much, Apollo, for hosting me, and good evening to our viewers, and happy belated Women's Day to all the women out there that are watching SOT TV. To start with, Apollo, you are asking me to give you to what extent. It's very hard to measure progress where I don't have an evidence-based research. So I am going to give from my own observation. This year's theme was equality for now, for a sustainable tomorrow. That means that because we still have inequality, we are still talking about equality for now. If we had removed the inequality, then maybe we would say a different world. So I want to say that we have made, to some extent, progress in terms of empowerment of women in Uganda, and we have made progress both socially, economically, and politically to ensure that women are accorded equal dignity as men. This we have seen in the education sector. Of course, there is increase in enrollment of girls in the education sector, but also we've seen more women coming into leadership, positions of leadership, especially this 2021 after the elections. We've seen many women, and for the first time in Uganda, we've had the Prime Minister coming as a lady for the first time. We also have the Vice President and majority of the ministers being ladies. That is progress. We also have the laws in place. To start with, the international conventions, like the Convention on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. We have the Constitution that provides specifically for equality of all persons, and also putting in place the state to put affirmative action and facilities to enhance, especially remove discrimination and inequalities of vulnerable persons like women. We've gotten the Succession Act amended. Again, that is progress because it is empowering many of the women that were vulnerable to abuse after they lose loved ones. We have also the Domestic Violence Act and others. So in terms of legislation, we have moved. In terms of leadership, we have moved. And in terms of education, we have also moved. However, our moving does not mean that we have reached there. We are still challenged, especially now with COVID. 2021 was a year when we were still having the lockdown, and our children were affected majorly, especially the girl child. The girl child dropped out of school. Many were married off. Many were pregnant, that even when they resumed school, not all of them have gotten the opportunity to go back to school. We are still challenged. 17 women die when giving birth. So the maternal mortality is still at a level that is unprecedented, but also to say that the health facilities, lowest to the grassroots, are still lacking in many ways. And so not to mention the issue of poverty. So those are many of the things that still challenge us as women. But also we need to know that whereas we have women at the top and they are in leadership, that does not necessarily translate into the actual delivery of services and improvement. And so it means that we need to have more critical mass building in all the sectors to ensure that we remove women from the positions of inequality as we continue to see.
Well, thank you so much, Sylvia. But again, it's good that you mentioned some women who have managed to break the ceiling and they are in high positions of responsibility. And I would wish to ask you how these women who have made it really have done and worked to fight these inequalities. To what extent do you think they have used their spaces to help that common person, that woman in rural areas, to also to get the feel of the achievements in this fight?
The women in top leadership, of course, they are the women in the boardroom. They are the women at the table where policies are being made. So, for instance, if we are talking about the Minister of Health, it means the resource and budgeting concerning health facilities that are intending to improve women's well-being are planned in the area where she is. And we are expecting her to do more affirmative action concerning the removing those gaps that we continue to see. We have the Prime Minister. Now that we have a Myoga, now that we have the parish model, is it the Myoga? We expect her in these plans to ensure that women are given more affirmative action. Because when these Myoga come, you are going to realize that at the grassroots, the men are going to scramble, and they're already in better positions. So we want to see translation of those decisions that are made at the national level being manifesting at the grassroots. For instance, if we have women that have formed circles, how much are they putting in the circles of women? Women are performing more in agriculture. They are the breadwinners. How much is being given to the breadwinners and ensuring that in agriculture we remove more of the subsistence farming and introduce more of commercial farming, which cannot happen unless more investment is put there. I must say the women in the boardroom are much challenged because we expect them to empower and mentor as many as possible in leadership, so that right from the LOC to LOC5 local administration to different spaces of leadership, we have women that are in critical mass and are planning for the ordinary woman. However, I must say that always the women in the boardroom are challenged. Power, you know, the sharing of power, and sometimes failing to negotiate sufficiently enough to ensure that the resources they have been entrusted with are actually translating into transforming that particular woman. So that is where the challenge still is, that the numbers at the leadership does not necessarily translate into helping the girl child to stay in school, helping the girl child to get the facilities they need to be in school. Sometimes it is very easy to have it here at the national level, and when implementation comes, we lose it there in the middle. So I must say that whereas they are there, we still demand much more to see in terms of transformation at the grassroots. The gender-based violence that still continue is still something affecting women. The lack of access to justice, many women are incarcerated. So without having, for example, the law that helps people have more lawyers to defend them, all those are remaining challenges that we still continue to grapple with, but which we challenge those that are in positions of power, especially of our kind, to do much more than what they are doing.
Sylvia, I liked the concept of women in boardrooms, or boardroom women, and that takes me to specifically the women the woman member of parliament, that district woman MP. And if I may ask, has that affirmative action really achieved the goals it was intended to achieve? Especially, for instance, we have been talking, we know that the girl child, for instance, needs, one of the needs the girl child, especially in schools, need just cheap, as cheap as 2,000 shillings. I'm talking about the sanitary pads. Isn't it your concern that at this point we do not hear them speaking about that very important but cheap item?
I've lost you somewhere. I am going to try to add one or two to understand the question. I want to understand the question that you are asking. Does this position of a woman representative in parliament translating into actual service delivery? I want to mention and say the woman in parliament has a mandate to play. And one of the mandate that woman position is supposed to play is to legislate purposely, to bring laws that are going to strengthen the well-being and rights and whatever that goes with the life of an ordinary person or a woman that they are representing to be in a better position. For example, I would expect the woman member on parliament to concentrate on legislating towards healthy regulation of health sector, where the sector is increasingly becoming private driven and very expensive. I would expect the woman member on parliament to legislate and ensure that the ordinary poor woman, the vulnerable woman, can access justice. Now, when it comes to the health facilities and the empowerment of the girl child, for example, the sanitary ware, I would expect the honorable member of parliament, the woman member of parliament, to ask other questions, the Minister of Finance, and the appropriation of resources, the budgeting, and critique and find out whether that budget is addressing the needs of the ordinary girl to stay in school. I would expect for them to ask her the questions where the resources have not been utilized properly. So those, if they stand in those positions and ask those that hold the resources to account and also pass the relevant laws and provide resources to enforce those laws, then the woman member of parliament would have performed. But we see increasingly selfishness approaches, that when the members of parliament get to parliament, it's all about them. They forget the reason why they go to parliament. And therefore we remain with a lot of inequalities and resources being misappropriated and corruption thriving. And because no one is asking the hard questions, we tend to remain in this quagmire. And every year we celebrate Women's Day, but with a lot of challenges that remain unattended to.
And Sylvia, now we turn to those individuals that are actually behind the fight for gender equality. Let's talk about those individuals and the whole effort, I mean the whole fight as it is. There's a concern now that maybe this fight has been abused, this fight has been misinterpreted to mean that the man, the other and that gender should be brought down, and that brings in the aspect of insecurity, that the other gender will feel insecure, and when actually you would want that gender to be on your side in order to be successful in that fight. What can you say about that?
I love about that when we over-empower the woman, then the male gender remains insecure. Is that what you are asking me?
Yes, Sylvia, I'm saying when now the fight seems to have been misinterpreted to mean that the other gender should be brought down, and that I fear, that's my fears, that it may lead into the other gender shunning away from the fight.
I think here this is where we have a misconception. talking about equality doesn't mean bringing down the other. We are saying women are human beings, and they should be accorded equal dignity as the men. They should be accorded equal treatment. But we've seen, because of history, because of narratives, because of cultural dimensions, there has been a tendency to treat the woman as a lesser human being in terms of the whole aspects, socially, economically, and politically. You realize that when a woman is being nurtured right from the home, they are taught to work and improve themselves for marriage. Everything is about work and prepare yourself and for your husband. And as a result, the narration is like everything has to be subordinated to the gender that is the male gender. And when it comes to the home and the environment and all the gender-based violence, the man will always demand from the woman, expecting much more, as if the woman is a lesser human being. So you realize that oftentimes when they don't do it right, they are battered because they have not cooked the food. They receive all sorts of abuses instead of working as equals and working as with the same dignity. So what we are talking about here is correcting the imbalances. Not to say that a woman should be overboard, but let us correct the imbalances, and let's also deal with those areas that have facilitated or that have increased the gender inequalities, and try to ensure that both men and women are equal. Both the girl child goes to school and the male child goes to school. They all complete their education and decide what they want to be in life. Instead of saying, you see, we don't have school fees, now let's take the male child, you the girl get married, even before she's of age. We are talking about reducing and dealing with imbalances. We are not talking about power over or power against.
All right, Sylvia, you are an statute lawyer, and I want you to tell us now what is still pending. What is still what are those bottlenecks in this fight? Well, could it be now a matter of the laws or the legal regime? Could it be something to do with mobilization and sensitization of the masses about this, the need to ensure equality, gender equality? What could it be?
It is a multifaceted approach. No one size fits it all. We are going to address the imbalances in different spheres of life. We have to deal with the social, with the economic, with the political. So we need to deal with awareness creation, first of all. And we need to tell every human being to know that women are born as human beings and they are equal and they have their uniqueness. Being unique with the maternal function does not make them any less of human beings. And so when we begin to change the narrative from the dealing with the cultural norms that are repugnant, or cultural norms which we call outdated, a woman cannot be a heir, a woman cannot own property, a woman cannot have the same levels of education, a woman cannot be in the home and be treated with dignity, she's just a property. When we deal with that and we begin to sensitize and we deal away with the cultural norms and religious norms that disempower women, through sensitization, we shall be addressing the root causes. We need to deal with the poverty levels in homes and families and begin to empower homes to have more and better, economically better empowered, so that, you know, sometimes some of this gender-based violence is caused by economic lacking in the homes, or when the women begin to work and the men are not earning because of unemployment, again it causes gender. We need to deal with leadership. We need to train our leaders right from the grassroots, women and men, and empower them to balance the power. It's not enough to give me a position, but when I cannot take a decision and I'm only there as just as a face, but the power lies behind. We need to empower in real sense of empowerment. We need to work on the education sector. The girls are dropping out of school. The facilities are too poor for the girls. And sometimes some of those factors, like now even lack of a sanitary towel, can cause a girl to leave school. We need to clear all those problems and ensure that the girls are in school and they can study. Health facilities, the women that go for birth, the women that go to the health facilities to seek medical attention, we need to see facilities at the lowest level of the parish or the parish health center, so that women cannot walk long distances to seek for medication. And lastly, but most important, we need to have these laws enforced. You see, when there is a violation, if there is a defilement case, if there is a rape case, if there is a gender assault, if there is a property-related issue, if there is administration of estate, and this vulnerable woman has no one to hold them by the hand, they cannot access justice. When they go to courts of law, they move endlessly and they come out with nothing. It means the laws are there, but because they are not implemented, we don't have lawyers state-funded. We don't have enough lawyers to carry these vulnerable persons by hand. It means the laws are toothless. And so the perpetrators will continue to defile, they will continue to rape, they will continue to assault, they will continue to deprive of property, and as a result we shall be in a stalemate and we shall continue in the same cycle over. So it is a whole range of issues that we need to deal with, and it needs to be tackled right from the governance and at the grassroots in the homes where we live.
Now, finally from Ms. Livia, let's talk about one particular area, women in politics. In Uganda, it looks like that one has been adequately covered. Look at what you talked about, the vice president, the deputy speaker of parliament, and initially the speaker of parliament, then this time the prime minister, the IGG, and all the women that head entities and agencies in government. Look at the representation at all levels, right from LOC1 up to the highest administration of office in this land. Do you think, in just 1 minute, do you think you should still claim for more, or in politics you are adequately catered for?
The quantity of numbers should translate into the quality of life. It's not enough to have all those women in parliament at the leadership levels, but when the biggest percentage of women out there are dying because of maternal health, they are dying because of gender-based violence, they are not in school, they are getting married off very early, we need a critical mass of women empowerment. We need transformed lives. So we have our leaders out there, but it's not enough. Let's see that number translating into actual well-being of a woman, a day-to-day woman. My mother down there in Mukaka, my grandmother, my young sister that has never come to Kampala, my sister living in the slum. Once that is changed, then we shall say, yes, this women empowerment in politics translated into quality of life and good governance.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, and it is always a privilege to have you on this show. And of course, let's wait and also work together to see how we can, of course, see gender inequalities, of course, worked out, and there is gender equality elsewhere. My name is Simapolo, and I must thank Sylvia Nambiru. She's the Executive Director, Legal Aid Service Providers Network, also known as LASPNet. And we thank our viewers for your time. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll be back next Friday. Limelight is out. Good night and a good weekend.